I'm Sheree Hovsepian, and this is my second exhibition here at Higher Pictures Gallery in New York City. I like the idea of seducing the viewer with beautiful, historically rich antecedent work that tickles the mental bone, but also gives your visual sensibilities something to work with and play with. I was born in Isfahan, Iran, and my family immigrated to the US when I was about 2 years old. And we ended up in Northwest Ohio because my mother was accepted to the Medical College of Ohio. I did my undergrad at the University of Toledo, and I did a double major in fine arts and art history with an emphasis in photography. And I did my graduate work at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago. I was in the photography department, and I went there specifically to study with Barbara de Genevieve. I've always really loved silver gelatin printing and prints. I really like the romance of what happens in the darkroom. I have been photographing my sister for many years, and she's the model in all of this work, mainly because physically we're very similar, and she can become a stand-in for me. Aside from photographing her body, I'll often photograph things that I find, things that sort of finish the human body, where parts will be the human form and then something non-human will finish it. I made these ceramic forms replicating shapes that I found in my other artwork, or totemic forms, and then place them together. I also really like showing that these objects were touched, which is something that photography usually doesn't allow us to do. The artist-model relationship is inherently charged and political, and there's a hierarchy within it, and it's a power structure, and I'm very interested in that sort of dynamic. Here she's sort of revealing or hiding behind these forms. I'm interested in the trace that my body leaves. During the time that I was studying photography in my school, everything that was time-based, film, installation, video, was all sort of lumped into photography. Digital was just starting. It was a transformative, transgressive time within the media. So the work I was looking at and I really felt an affinity for were things like Sophie Calle, Annette Messager, people who were using photography as not just as picture makers, but as a tool to make objects. Other artists such as Hannah Wilke, and looking back at artists like Anna Mendieta, the work wasn't necessarily within the photograph, but it was a trace left from a performance. Those sort of broad terms of photography were what really shaped me and what influenced my love of photography and my use of photography. I chose to work on a smaller scale for this exhibition because I wanted to provide a more intimate experience for the viewer. I wanted people to really take the time to come close and look. This does have ceramic in it, and then here I've also included a piece of wood, which is the same walnut wood of the frame. I wanted to try to bring the objectness of the frame inside of the artwork. I make the frames in the studio. I really like the idea of Shadowbox frames. I've always liked the work of Joseph Cornell, and I like the idea of his precious boxes that were really about devotion and the size being so intimate. It's more than just a frame for the piece. It becomes part of the piece. It makes it more object, allows the work to have depth. When my mother was very young, she had a sort of a breakdown, and in the hospital they told her that she should take up string art. I started incorporating that as a way to add line and three-dimensionality to a flat surface, but also the process of putting the pieces together was very meditative, and I like getting into that sort of trance of wrapping the string and tying it and creating these new forms and these shapes with the string and nails. And I find a lot of hand crafts and crafts that we used to do as sort of women's home crafts, they peek into my work, but a lot of them do have this sort of repetitive, meditative quality where the mind can wander the hands are still busy. Doing things like that facilitates the sort of half dream, half conscious space where we're most free to think about new ideas. And so that it really does provide a meditation for me. And as part of my studio practice, I think it's pretty valuable. This piece, it's a collage made from a photogram, which is this shape here. And a photogram is a photographic print made from just simply laying objects on a piece of photosensitive paper and exposing it to light and then putting it through the chemical process. Here I've mixed it with a photograph of this object is a bone folder, which is something that's found in bookmaking and bookbinding techniques. And it's, again, one of those objects that I find to sort of mimic a human form, or for me becomes like this totemic like human form that I brought into the studio and photographed. And the other photograph I have here is of a female figure bent over. I started making photograms when I was pregnant because I needed to go to work and have something to show for the day because my time was just so much more precious. So photograms were kind of the first way I began to do that. Working in the darkroom, I could make many images in one day. It made my studio practice much more rigid and more defined because I had to know that, oh, I have a babysitter from 10 to 6 today, so I'm going to go to the studio during this time and I have to have this work done. And it makes you much more decisive, and art making is just about making decisions anyway, so it's like, it definitely made me better at decision making. In the signals, it was a video piece that I made consisting of 2 arms, which are actually mirrored within the video, moving very slowly, dancing. Hands are just so expressive, and the sound that I paired with it, something called binaural beats, which are sounds that are meant to put you into kind of like a meditative trance. I was interested in the idea of like having a video which can actually elicit a human physical response. This piece is called Empath. It is a photograph collaged with some ceramic forms, and then string is added. An empath is someone who takes on other people's emotions and feelings and is very sensitive. The way that the string is tied looks like sun rays, so to me it seemed like this figure was open to absorbing information. I think art is important because it gives people a place to think and dream and to sit in reverie without fear. Right now is actually a good time to be a woman in the arts. It seems like we have a lot of opportunities, that things are evening out as far as museum exhibitions, and galleries are taking on more, not only female, but gender non-conforming artists. The one thing that seems to be kind of difficult is that in looking back, when I try to think about my future or people that I can sort of mimic my career on, we're missing a whole slew of artists that could have been our role models, or precedent rather, for our careers. And so we have to kind of forge those paths on our own.